The Marvel Cinematic Universe always expanding, people seem to ask the same question. Where do I start? Well, the beginning is normally the best bit. Movie number 1, Iron Man. Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist Tony Stark gets blown up, has to get an arc reactor put in his heart to keep him alive, escape a bunch of terrorists, comes back a changed man and wants to dismantle his weapons division of Stark Industries. Jeff Bridges' villainous character does not want this to happen. Honestly, Obadiah Stane is a really forgetful villain at times. They clash, Stark reveals to the world he's Iron Man, and we get an end credit scene from Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury, here to talk about the Avengers Initiative. If that accent was deemed racist, I deeply apologise. The Incredible Hulk. Honestly, you could really skip this one. It doesn't really have any major effect on the plot. Edward Norton is Bruce Banner, soon to be replaced. The actor, not the character. Becomes Incredible Hulk. Tim Roth plays his rival Abomination. They cause a lot of destruction. Post-credits scene with Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. Iron Man 2. Tony Stark's back and he has alcoholism. Don't worry, they don't go into it too much. Also, his best friend Rhodey is replaced. Again, the actor, not the character. We have another forgettable villain in the term of Whiplash, played by Mickey Rourke. I want my bird. If that accent was deemed racist, I deeply apologise. Iron Man's in self-destruct mode because the arc reactor inside him is slowly dying. He somehow creates a new element which is able to fix his arc reactor. Rhodes finally becomes War Machine. Big battle with a villain. Oh, and we also get Natasha Romanoff's Black Widow introduced. I know that seems sexist that she hardly gets a mention there, but don't worry, she becomes a very key part of the series. Thor, welcome to Asgard. If that accent was deemed racist, I deeply apologise. This is where we start to bring in a bit of the mythology. Thor is the son of King Odin and who should be the rightful heir to the hammer Mjolnir. Thor's essentially a college frat boy in space, acts like a complete douche nozzle, gets banished to Earth until he becomes worthy to lift the hammer. His brother Loki, played by the magnificent Tom Hiddleston, finds out that he's actually adopted, yells at his dad so much he puts him into a coma, and tries to go on a murderous rampage. S.H.I.E.L.D. gets introduced for the first time in the MCU, including my own personal fan favourite character, Agent Phil Coulson. We also get a cameo from Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, and there's some love plot thing with Natalie Portman's Jane Foster. This time it is worthy to be brushed off because all she is just there. Honestly, no wonder Natalie Portman was ticked off by it. Captain America, the first Avenger. Now this film gets a lot of undue stick, and it really shouldn't. We get introduced to Chris Evans' interpretation of Captain America. Starts off as Steve Rogers, a grown man's head CGI'd on a little boy's body. That really sounds wrong when you say it like that. He gets chosen to take this superhero serum and becomes a male Adonis. It's set during World War II, so he goes to fight the Nazis. Has a love interest with Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter. Now that is how you do a female character justice, ladies and gentlemen. His best mate, Bucky Barnes, falls off a train and dies, and he fights the villainous Red Skull, played by Hugo Weaving. Oh, and he's also a commander of this splinter cell called Hydra. You'll find out more about them at another time. In order to save the world, Steve has to crash a plane into the ocean, which would likely kill him. Then he wakes up and apparently everything's fine. Or is it? Turns out he's been asleep for 70 years and he's now in the present day. Peggy Carter is an old bird and he's being recruited into a war. Which brings us to Marvel's Avengers. The first Avengers movie of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and boy is it good! Yes, it's directed by Joss Whedon and there's a bit of controversy now around that name. But trust me, at the time he was God of the Nerds. Ed Norton's Bruce Banner. Might have told you about him? He gets replaced by Mark Ruffalo, who is fantastic. The story premise is the same for any kind of hero team-up movie. Bring heroes together such as Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Nick Fury, Hulk, Black Widow, Hawkeye, to fight the villainous Loki and his alien army that's trying to take over Earth. They all clash because they don't trust each other. Phil Coulson dies in the line of duty, and that unites the Avengers for a common good. There's an absolutely kick-ass fight scene. Tony Stark makes the sacrifice play to save the world, and then they all go out for shawarma. And then we get the ultimate tease. Thanos is coming. At this point in time, you just think he's a big purple dude with a weird smile who wants to court death. Iron Man 3. Tony Stark has PTSD. Which is understandable when you send a nuke into space and almost die. But the last I checked, PTSD doesn't mean you give a terrorist your home address and not expect it to be bombed. Which is precisely what he does to Ben Kingsley's The Mandarin. Or is he? You find out that Ben Kingsley's Mandarin isn't actually the Mandarin. My name's Trevor Slattery, I'm an actor. If anyone took offence by that accent, I deeply apologise. Turns out the Mandarin is actually some nerd that Tony Stark skipped out in a meeting one time when he was still the douchebag philanthropist. This leads to a showdown between Tony Stark and this Mandarin, the multiple Iron Man suits that he has made. Oh yeah, and there's Gwyneth Paltrow in yoga pants beating the crap out of someone. Oh yeah, and then he gets an operation that fixes the arc reactor problem in his heart. Bit of a redundant move now because at the time Robert Downey Jr. wasn't sure if he was going to carry on playing Iron Man, and this was a way to tie it up. Yeah, he lasts for the full Infinity Saga, so pointless. But we do get a Mark Ruffalo cameo. Thor: The Dark World. Thor's going around all the planets beating up evil people, but he still misses Jane Foster. Yeah, that was the Natalie Portman love interest that no one really cared about in the first movie, and we still don't in the second. Until she winds up not well and has to go to Asgard to get treated. The baddie in this one is Dark Elf Malekith, played by Christopher Eccleston. They're after this weird ether energy that somehow leads them to fighting on Earth and London. Oh yeah, and Selvig's a bit nuts from all the events of the first Avengers movie and running around in his underpants at some point. It's quite funny. Loki's still in it, which is one of the only saving graces of this film. And sure enough, they kill him off. Or do they? Yeah, it turned out he faked his death and he's taken over Odin's place in Asgard. Now he's the new ruler. Definitely left a good bit to last, guys. Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Now this is a sequel done right. Directed by the Russo brothers, Cap is adjusting to life in modern day America. Turns out Hydra has been infiltrated by S.H.I.E.L.D. for the last god knows how many decades. It turns into a really spy, political intrigue kind of thriller film, which I really enjoyed. On you find out Bucky Barnes is still alive and he's now the Winter Soldier, has no memory of Cap, and is intent on killing him because it's part of his mission. Anthony Mackie makes his Marvel debut as Falcon. Oh boy, it's a good one. Black Widow has straight hair in this one, like poker straight. She really suits it. I don't know why they didn't keep it going forward. Oh, and Nick Fury dies. Or does he? You probably guessed by now. No, he doesn't. The good guys win by blowing up S.H.I.E.L.D. Bucky almost kills Captain America, but he doesn't. And this leads to some intrigue about whether Falcon and Cap are gonna go and find them. Guardians of the Galaxy. Go and get your love! Honestly, I could really just stop it right there. Guardians of the Galaxy is basically the Avengers in space. We've got a human not brought up on Earth, an alien who's lost his family, played surprisingly well by Dave Bautista, a green-coloured assassin, Gamora aka Zoe Saldana, and the best part is a raccoon and a talking tree. Vin Diesel literally has 4 words in the whole movie, and he's brilliant at all 4 of them. We get to see a bit more of Thanos in this film. Gamora is also the adopted daughter of Thanos, as is Nebula, played by Scottish actress Karen Gillan. Got a big blue alien called Ronan the Accuser, who's basically hell-bent on destroying the galaxy. And this ragtag group of heroes, or anti-heroes. Heroes or anti-heroes at this point? I'm really not sure. They basically stop Ronan. And how did they do it? Dance off, bro! Me and you! If anyone was offended by that accent, I deeply apologise. We also get to see the Collector, but his arc doesn't really go anywhere. And we get a Howard the Duck cameo. And finally, Avengers: Age of Ultron. So Tony Stark is hell-bent on creating a suit of armour around the world to protect from any other intergalactic threats. Him and Bruce Banner then create Ultron, which is basically Jarvis's evil twin. Sure enough, there's a lot of problems with that, specifically giant robot army. We also get introduced to Wanda Maximoff and Quicksilver as well. No point in mentioning his full name because he dies. You also get a bit more of Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye in Avengers Age of Ultron. Much more than you did in the actual Avengers. He's fleshed out more and he's actually got a decent life. And the whole Natasha Romanoff, Bruce Banner romance that seemed to be developing gets completely shot dead. Because it's Joss Whedon, he doesn't like anyone to be happy. And Thor has some electroshock therapy bath that he sees visions of Asgard falling, and then Stark creates Vision. Big Avengers battle in Sokovia. Consequences of that battle will come in Phase 3. Oh, and Hulk flies away in a big ship because he got infected with Scarlet Witch's red mist, went totally nuts and almost killed everyone. But we'll get to the ramifications of that again in Phase 3. Ant-Man. Paul Rudd plays Scott Lang. Criminal turned criminal, but it's mainly because he can't get a job in decent society. Then Hank Pym recruits him to become the Ant-Man. There's a forgettable villain played by the bald guy from the first series of House of Cards. And we get introduced to Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp. Eventually. But the part of the movie that I particularly loved is when they enlarged the Thomas the Tank Engine train. You guys know that I'm a big Thomas fan. Of course I'm going to love that scene. And it's when we first discover the Quantum Realm, which plays in later. Okay, now we can jump into Phase 3. Captain America, Civil War. So remember in Age of Ultron, the whole thing with Sokovia? Yeah, no one was really happy with the destruction they caused. So they introduced the Sokovia Accords to try and put the Avengers in line. Captain America is against this idea, Tony Stark is for this idea. People take sides. We get introduced to Chadwick Boseman's superb take on T'Challa, aka the Black Panther, and introduced to Baron Zemo. Big airport fight, which is amazing. And then you find out that not only did the Winter Soldier kill Tony Stark's parents, but that Captain America knew of it. Big fight between the three of them, and Avengers is shattered. Doctor Strange. Egotist Stephen Strange has a car accident that totally destroys his hands, goes to try and get his hands fixed and winds up becoming, a mystical Time Lord. Tilda Swinton's in it and was caused massive controversy because of the whitewashing scandal. Mads Mikkelsen plays yet another forgettable villain. Oh yeah, and the big CGI villain is Dormammu, who is actually Benedict Cumberbatch in a CGI suit. Oh, and Mordo, who is Doctor Strange's mentor, is going to go out and try and kill all the sorcerers. I am not going to insult the actor who plays him by butchering the pronunciation of his name, but he is absolutely fantastic. And that is the rivalry that I want to see going forward. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Kurt Russell turns up and he is Peter Quill's dad, otherwise known as Eagle. Comes this close to making Peter Quill a bad guy until he makes the dumbest move in the world and reveals that he put a tumour in his mum's head and killed her. They have a big fight, Eagle gets destroyed, and Yondu dies in one of the most emotional scenes that I had watched up to this point. And then you get a teaser about the potential birth of Adam Warlock. Spider-Man Homecoming. Peter Parker made his debut in Captain America Civil War, played by the excellent Tom Holland. Also, Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. Woo! Robert Downey Jr. is essentially now the Uncle Ben of his life. Gives Spider-Man a new suit, Peter Parker being a teenager, pushing the boundaries, tries to take on Michael Keaton's Vulture. Tony Stark takes the suit off Peter Parker. Obviously Peter Parker proves himself by defeating Vulture. Stark is going to make him an Avenger, but Parker turns it down to stick to being the friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man. Thor Ragnarok. Taika Waititi takes the helm of this third Thor film and injects a massive breath of fresh air into it. Thor finds out that Loki has been impersonating his dad all along. They go to get him on Earth and turns out that he's not where he left him, and Odin straight up dies. Not before revealing that they have a sister, Hela, the goddess of death, played by the superb Cate Blanchett. She kicks both Thor and Loki's asses, destroys Mjolnir, and Thor winds up on Sakaar, working for Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster in a fighting den. And through this you find out that the Hulk has been living there for 2 years and is Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster's prize fighter. Thor and Hulk fight it out in the ring but don't get a clear winner. Loki is made it to Sakaar and is the Grandmaster's right-hand man, because of course he is, it's Loki, and we get introduced to one of the best comic relief characters of Taika Waititi's court. Hey, I'm cool. If anyone was offended by that accent, I deeply apologise. So this band of merry, we call them men or aliens, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, them and Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie decide to bust out, but of course they still have the Goddess of Death to deal with because she is burning everything to the ground. And Hela takes out one of Thor's eyes, and then they have to cause the very thing that they were hoping not to cause, which was Ragnarok. And straight up blow up Asgard. Black Panther. Wakanda forever. No accents this time because it could be extremely racist. T'Challa's now king and having to manage Wakanda. Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger turns up and claims the right to the throne, because it turns out that he is T'Challa's cousin, because T'Challa's dad had essentially exiled them from Wakanda. Killmonger beats the absolute crap out of T'Challa to the point where he's almost dead, until he ingests this kind of heart-shaped herb which grants him the powers of the Black Panther. There winds up essentially being a Wakandan civil war between those who support the rightful King T'Challa and those who support Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger. And we have such a great villain. Of course they won't kill him off. No, they straight up kill him. And it ends with Wakanda officially announcing themselves to the world that they've had all this advanced technology for decades and never told anybody about it. Avengers Infinity War. This is essentially Marvel's snuff film. Big Purple Thanos, played brilliantly by Josh Brolin, finally arrives on the scene. He's coming for the Infinity Stones and destroying everything in his wake to make it possible, because he plans to wipe out half the life in the universe, something that's becoming more and more understandable with every year that goes past on planet Earth. So the Avengers try to beat him, and I emphasise try because he kicks all of their asses, gathers all of the Infinity Stones, snaps his fingers, and half of all life is completely annihilated. Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's ironic that I forgot about Ant-Man from Phase 2 because his sequel in Phase 3 is completely forgettable. The only thing you really need to pay attention to in this film is the post-credit scene. Scott goes into the quantum realm to try and harvest some energy to make the character of Ghost stay stable in our universe, and while he's there, the Thanos snap happens and wipes everybody out, so he is stuck in the quantum realm. Captain Marvel. Brie Larson's Carol Danvers is a part of this Kree extermination squad. The Kree and the Skrull have been in this war for God knows how many years, and they're trying to hunt down the Skrull to essentially wipe them out. It leads them to 90s Earth, where they run into a de-aged Nick Fury and Phil Coulson. They eventually capture Talos, who is the leader of the Skrulls, only to find out, and a nice plot twist, the Skrulls aren't the bad guys. It also turns out that Captain Marvel had amnesia when she got her powers, and they recruited her as Verse, one of their Kree hunting party. She finally becomes aware of this, kicks everybody's ass, and heads off into outer space to continue fighting the good fight. But leaves a pager for Nick Fury for him to contact her in case of an emergency, which he did in the Thanos snap. Avengers Endgame. The remaining Avengers, along with Captain Marvel, go to find Thanos. He's used the Infinity Stones' energy to destroy the Infinity Stones so that his actions cannot be undone, and Thor straight up chops his head off. Then we jump forward in time 5 years. Everyone is trying to move on from the Thanos snap, all aside from Hawkeye. He wasn't in the first film, but you find out that his entire family got wiped out by the snap, and he goes on a murderous rampage as his new persona, Ronin. Then a rat steps on some buttons in a storage unit and releases Ant-Man! He's been in the quantum realm, which only feels like about 5 months for him. Goes searching for the remaining Avengers, and they decide to come up with a plan. The Avengers are going to use the quantum realm to travel back in time to recollect all the Infinity Stones and snap everybody back. And they start doing really well, aside from the fact that Black Widow has to sacrifice herself to get the Soul Stone. And Nebula gets captured by 2014 Thanos from Guardians of the Galaxy, reads her mind, sees everything that's about to come, and decides he's got to do something about it. So they get back with all the stones, but Thanos decides to start his attack now. Professor Hulk manages to wield the gauntlet, snap his fingers, but you don't think they've been brought back to life. Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man get the crap kicked out of them by Thanos, but you get the loudest cheer in the world because you find out Captain America can lift Mjolnir. So it looks like the heroes are going to get their asses kicked again, because it's only Steve Rogers standing against Thanos' entire army. Then everybody starts to come through Doctor Strange's portals. And boy do we have one of the best fight sequences in cinematic history! Which sadly ends with Tony Stark having to make the ultimate sacrifice play. Tony Stark gets the Iron Gauntlet, snaps Thanos and his army, but in turn, Stark dies. Captain America decides to go back and return all the Infinity Stones, but he doesn't come back as the Captain America we know. He's Old Man Cap, and passes the shield onto Anthony Mackie's Falcon. And the final shot is Captain America back in the past with Peggy Carter. Beautiful end to the Infinity Saga. But Marvel being Marvel, it doesn't end there. Spider-Man Far From Home. Peter Parker's feeling the pressure now that Tony Stark is dead. People are looking at him to be the next Iron Man. He doesn't feel like he's up to the task. Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio turns up to recruit Peter Parker to try and stop all these villains that have already taken out his world. During the course of these events, Peter Parker realises that he's not the man to take up Iron Man's mantle, that it's Mysterio. But wait! After Peter Parker essentially hands Mysterio the keys to Stark's empire, they find out it's been all an illusion just to get his hands on that tech. And of course pretend to be the superhero that he wants to be. Parker realises he's made a mistake, and it takes a talk from Jon Favreau's Happy Hogan to inspire him to go and kick Mysterio's ass, which he does, but not without one last parting shot. Reveals Spider-Man as Peter Parker. And that is officially how Phase 3 and the Infinity Saga came to a close. Thank you to everybody who's watched the abridged versions. I'm Super, I'm Ginger, and I gotta go. Bye!